Okay. Hi everybody. So my name's Stephen Blackburn, and I work for Leeds City Council. I lead on our Smart Cities programme, Smart Leeds. I'm going to tell you, just give you really over the next sort of 15 or so minutes, just an overview of what that programme is. I lead on some of the work that I'll speak to you, and I'm involved in some of the work as well. But there's other, there's an awful lot of projects going on that we could label as sort of smart city projects that I guess my role in that respect is trying to join up the dots and rather than have people working in silos, which often happens in such a large organisation as the council, try to get people to talk to each other and work collaboratively. So, like I say, I'm working in some areas and just trying to join the dots up in others. But in terms of our programme, we've identified, and this is not to say we're not doing work in other areas, I have to say, but we've identified these particular priority areas. So, and I'm going to go through just some examples of what we're doing in each of these areas in just a moment. But our priorities are health and well-being, housing, travel and transport, and more recently, climate emergency, since the declaration to be carbon neutral by 2030. It's quite a tall order, and I think got some people probably scratching their heads on that one, but definitely something that should be on that list. And then the foundations, what we call our foundations. So this is the stuff really that underpins and supports all the good stuff on the left-hand side of your screen there. So world-class connectivity, data, digital inclusion. And I think I always put collaboration in as one of our foundations, because I think what we are really good at in Leeds is we're quite a small city, generally, certainly the city centre. It means that we can easily walk between, generally I have to say, obviously not at the moment, but easily walk between officers and speak to each other. There's lots of these kind of meetings taking place all the time. I think generally we're not necessarily competitive with each other. We actually, I think that's certainly my interpretation at least, that we do work collaboratively really well, and we work together. And I think we should applaud each other for that. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about the foundations first of all. So just to give you some example, a couple of projects that we're working on at the moment. So connectivity. So we've just signed off a contract with BT and who will be using OpenReach to roll out a full fibre network to just short of 1,500 council buildings, other public sector buildings, some schools as well. And that'll either be fibre to the premise, or there'll at least be the cable running by these 1,500 buildings. The idea there is, number one, as a council, we've got a good network there to help us deliver our services. But also, these buildings can then act as anchors so that the private sector suppliers can come in, use those buildings, and link up to those, and then, if you like, deliver the last mile. So the idea is that of those buildings, they're all within a mile or so of residential and business premises, and that's right across the district. So that's the if you like, we're doing all the heavy lifting, we're digging the road up and rolling out that infrastructure to enable the private sector come in and do the last mile and do the rest of it. LoRaWAN, so long range wide area network. We're just about to start that work. We've been doing a lot of background work over the last few months, and we'll be very soon going out to procurement on that one. And really this, for those of you who are not familiar with LoRa, think from our point of view, we see it as getting our foot on the first rung of the IoT ladder, basically. Whether it still be something we're using in 5 years' time, who knows? I suspect we may well be. But for now, for a network that enables us to easily share small packets of data from Internet of Things devices all over the district, then that's a pretty cheap and cheerful way to enable us to get some real-time data. We're also in discussion with West Yorkshire Combined Authority as well, and it might be that network ultimately becomes a regional network, as has been done in Norfolk and Suffolk, and also across Scotland as well, where it's been championed right across the country by the Scottish Government. So, like I say, connectivity, really important for us to get the data back, get the infrastructure out there. But of course, if we're collecting, deploying these sensors, collecting loads of data, it's really important that we can do stuff with that data and we understand it and we can make decisions based on it that improve the services, improve lives to our customers. So we manage Data Mill North, which is our open data repository, and we've been, I think we've had that probably about 6 or 7 years now. We've championed that, not just across Leeds. We've never promoted it as a Leeds City Council website portal, but as a City of Leeds open data repository. And the idea is that we want to encourage others to open up their data as well, so that we've got a more holistic view of what's going on right across the city. But we've also, we also acknowledge that people work in Leeds, live in Bradford, vice versa, access services in Wakefield, etc. But we've also, promoted the use of that platform across the north as well, and other councils such as Stockport used it, Newcastle, Sunderland, and others as well. But we also acknowledge that when we get into the realms of real-time data, maybe what we've got at the moment doesn't really cut it as such. So we're just about to start some discovery work where we'll be looking at our next generation data platform. How can we better manage our data in general? How can we visualize it? Because it's okay to, well, we've opened up a few CSV files, which means as an organization we're open and transparent, and it gets us some way there, I guess. But really, for probably a larger part of the population, a CSV file probably just doesn't cut it, if you like, and they're probably just not that particularly interested in the raw data. So it's important that we're able to provide visualizations of that data, so we can really, open it up and people can understand it and interpret it. And we can allow people to create their own visualizations, dashboards, that kind of stuff as well. And of course, then it's the discovery piece. We'll also look at who the users of that platform might be, what they would use it for, as well as, for us, identifying use cases and making sure that the data that we're publishing and the outputs that come from that data are, really used and of use to people within the council, but people right across the city and across the region as well. And also, it may be that it improves our data management, just general data management, in terms of when we're wanting to share data with external partners, for example, that perhaps is an easier means of doing that and enabling us to share data much easily between organisations. Digital inclusion. So 100% Digital Leeds is our digital inclusion programme. It's, I think, the people that run that would probably say that it's certainly one of the largest digital inclusion programmes in the UK. I think if you add up all the pots of money from various sources, it's probably not far off £1 million. A couple of key projects within that programme And there's loads of stuff. I have to say, there's loads of stuff going on. I think this is a talk in its own right, really. But there's a tablet lending scheme, which is about, I think, it was about 350, 400 different tablets on that scheme. And the idea is that, you know, it's like you would to library, borrow a book. Well, you can borrow a tablet, and there's wraparound training and support that goes with that. And in fact, actually, it's run by the library service. And when they started that scheme, this is really, I think, really good actually. When they started that scheme, it was run from Leeds Central Library, and the idea was that, like I say, you go into the library, you can borrow a tablet. But the thing is, the people that they want to target just weren't going to the library. So the scheme didn't really quite work out as well as they were expecting. So what they've done, this is the ingenious part, I think, that so they've reached out to third sector organisations. Sometimes in the council, people would say these are the hard to reach, you know, communities or people. And actually, they're generally not hard to reach. They might be hard for us to reach because we're not in direct contact with them. But they are in contact with somebody, generally speaking. So we work with third sector organisations in communities. We train those people up. We give them the tablets, and then it's kind of train the trainer, and then they are working with their communities and their cohort. They're training people up that they work with and providing the skills and support in local communities. So, for example, we work with St George's Crypt in the city. They've got about 15 tablets, and they're working with homeless people to help them find a job, find a home, and get digital skills. So it's a really, really good scheme. Been doing really, really well, and continues to grow. And more recently, we've just completed a £100,000 grant fund, whereby we basically put out a call to community groups and said, if you've got an idea of you know, how to roll out digital inclusion, a programme in your community, and you want to access some of this money, I think it was up to £15,000, then, you know, put in an application form. I think we've given about 15 or so grants out to different community groups, and that could have been for anything. It could have been for tablets of their own, or for laptops, or Wi-Fi in their building, or even just to provide training and cover the staff training. But they could have put in for whatever, and that's been really successful as well. And hopefully, if we get some funding again in the future, and this is what a lot of this work is about, it's, you know, we're doing well for now, but who knows what's around the corner. So we'll also look out for funding to be able to continue that in the future. And like I say, you know, I think collaboration sort of underpins a lot of what we do internally at the council. We have what we call our innovation labs, where we identify a particular challenge or issue that might be impacting or affecting a particular service. Generally open data led, the innovation labs. And what we do there is we identify data that can be opened up, published on the Data Mill website, and then we work with service providers, service users, members of the public, interested parties, and developers from outside of the council. So if anybody's interested in getting involved in these in the future, please do get in touch with me outside of this group, and we'd be more than happy to you know, get you involved. The idea is that we get people together over the course of a day using that data that we've opened up. We, you know, between us, we could create some sort of prototype ideas, some solutions, and if any of those are any deemed to be worthwhile taking forward, then we will work with a particular developer to work that prototype up to a solution that we can use and integrate into particular services. So some examples there are Leeds social housing picker, which helps people to put in the most appropriate bids when looking for council houses. Leeds adult learning website, which is promoting adult learning courses across the city and helping you to sign up to them. And Leeds Bins is another one that came out of our innovation labs, which is promoting recycling, telling you when to put the right bin out, and all that kind of stuff. On the horizon, and this is something that I really should be working on right now, were I not confined to my dining room, I have to say. But we're starting, or we will be starting to work with the White Rose office park next door to the White Rose shopping centre. We're going to use that space as our living lab, where we've got a controlled environment there. We can work with companies, developers. There's a college on site as well. We hope to work with the students there. And we can deploy technologies, IoT stuff on that site, collect loads of data, and do some really good, clever stuff there as well. And we're going to have, the plan is, they want to build a new building on that site, and we'll have a sort of an innovation hub there as well. That'll clearly on hold for the time being, but hopefully as soon as things get back to normal, we'll be back on track with that. So some really exciting stuff there, actually, potentially in the future. Okay, so I'll just please do shout if I'm running out of time, because I do tend to waffle on a little bit. Apologies. I'll just go through I'll go through some examples of what we're doing in our priority areas. So health and wellbeing, obviously, big health sector in Leeds. There's some really good stuff. Work with NHS Digital quite regularly, so we're fortunate that they're in the city, teaching hospitals. So some, like I say, some really good work going on already. Public health, our CIO, Dylan Roberts, some of you may know him, also oversees now public health and CCGs. So there's kind of a coming together of some of the health sector in Leeds and the council, so working increasingly closely with each other. And just a couple of examples here. So CareView, that's a solution that came out of one of our innovation labs. That's looking at identifying social isolation, instances of social isolation, and working with people who are out in the community, and if they see things that might be deemed that somebody's living in perhaps socially isolated, they'll tap on the app, and enough people who are working in the community tap on that app, and it creates a heat map, and it means that then our I would say, increasingly limited public health team can target those specific areas that are sort of glowing on the heat map, if you like, and targeting the limited resources in the right areas, rather than in the past doing a blanket approach and perhaps not getting the responses and the feedback that we have actually achieved through doing it this way. Because what happens then, they don't particularly target a house and they think, well, that house looks like it's in need of doing up or is in disrepair or whatever. If there's a heat, there's no personal any data identifiable in the on the app, but the team will target that particular area. They'll leaflet drop in that area generally, and we've found that by targeting particular areas that have been highlighted through CareView, the response rate, phone calls and the responses to the leaflet is much higher than doing a blanket approach as we've done in the past. And Helm, just to mention that one, so this kind of is on the back of the Leeds Care Record. Some of you may have come across that. So the Leeds Care Record is about taking patient data from numerous systems across Leeds and pulling that different data in from various sources into one central repository, the Leeds Care Record, so that clinicians from variety of different trusts and organisations can log into the care record and see one version of the truth. The data has been pulled in using APIs from different sources. The Helm project kind of takes that a stage further, really. And this is about you looking after your health better, and what we call in Leeds the left shift. And it's really about promoting self-care and prevention, if you like, and you either using approved apps, collecting data, it might be using Strava, for example, collecting data about what you're doing to improve your health, to monitor your health condition if you have one. And you can put that data into, eventually, it's still, I would say, still being worked on this, but you put that data into Helm, your Helm record, into the portal. So that will help you much more easily manage your own health. And if you choose to, and it's up to you because it's your data, if you choose to, you could then share your data into the Leeds Care record as well, so that when you do need to go to the doctor, they can also see the data that you've been collecting through apps and the data that you've been collecting through other sources as well. Health and wellbeing, so that's next one is housing. So the council has 56,000 council properties, which means that we are the largest landlord in the city. And we really want to, promote ourselves as being a responsible landlord and really being an exemplar, if you like, that, we want our housing to the best standard that it can be. We have a programme, a Council House of the Future programme, which covers everything from managing the property to looking after our tenants and what is the future of telecare services, for example. We need to consider, bear in mind that the analogue telephone lines will be between now and 2025, so it's something that we need to consider there. But in terms of certainly a project that I'm leading on, GovTech Catalyst, again, unfortunately just been put on hold for now until at least the end of June. But this is whereby we're working with 5 different companies to look at how we can better manage our housing stock using technology, but also improve health outcomes of our tenants as well. So this is really about bringing the house and the tenant and the tenant's health all together. And for the first time, I mentioned right at the beginning of the talk that, often in the council, sometimes we work in silos. And this has been a real good project where we've got health people, adult social care, and housing people all sat around the table and all talking about the same subject. So it's been really good in that respect. So last year we worked on phase 1, which was a discovery phase, to really understand the problem, understand the issues that tenants have in terms of reporting a repair perhaps, or whether their house becomes damp, and how can they put that right. Sometimes they don't know that it's damp, or the situation gets really bad, and by the time they tell us, they may need to be rehoused. It's a bigger job for us to repair. So if we knew what was going on in real time, and if we could see that the house was perhaps declining in terms of its standard, becoming more damp, perhaps we could intervene and be more proactive. But I think this isn't just about rocking up and with some damp sensors and sticking it in the corner of the room and then us still doing the work, albeit a bit more proactively. We also want to provide that same data back to tenants as well, so they can see what's going on in their house. And it might be that something they're doing in the house, it might be putting a tumble dryer on, it's not vented, and it's just creating condensation and humidity within the property, not opening a window, for example. It could be perhaps sometimes that their behaviour is creating a worse situation, if you like. And of course, if they have asthma, COPD, one of those kind of conditions, that kind of environment is probably not going to do your health. And certainly, as your house becomes damp, your well-being not much good as well. So this is not just about us collecting a load of data and then acting upon it. It is about that, but not just. It's also about, I suppose, educating our tenants, giving them the data back that we've got as well, and encouraging them to sometimes change behaviour upstream so that it never becomes a problem to us downstream. So travel and transport, a priority, of course, as you can imagine. In Leeds, we're one of the largest cities in Western Europe that doesn't have a mass transit system. So that's something that I know that West Yorkshire Combined Authority are looking at again, and whether funding will change with the current situation in the future, who knows, but is certainly something at the moment. We're also looking at a project, looking to do a project on mapping traffic in around the city square, and looking at digital twinning, so that in the digital world, if you like, what happens if we close a road off and where does that impact somewhere else. West Yorkshire Combined Authority are also looking at mobility as a service, but I have to say that is quite difficult when we're in a deregulated system whereby First Bus and Arriva and others are private companies, and you know, somewhat reluctant to open up their data, but it's certainly something that we're looking at. And finally, I mentioned climate emergency. For those of you been into Leeds recently, you'll see that we're installing a district heating network, so the roads are all up, big pipes being laid, and that's from the centre at Cross Green. We're burning all the. We don't put anything to landfill anymore. It just gets incinerated. We're capturing that heat, and that heat will then be heating tower blocks. I think it's going to heat the hospital as well and other buildings. And we're also working on a project in the council to reduce grey miles. So that's kind of in-work miles. So is there a way, and it's, I mean, the way we're all working now will be interesting to see what's happening with the air quality in the city. You know, how can we reduce the number of in-work miles that we do? How can we promote more Skype calls, more we've got electric bikes at the council. How can we promote those and get people to use different, more sustainable methods of transport than getting in their car and physically going to one meeting to another meeting and all the rest of it. So lots of stuff there for climate emergency and working with other organisations across the city as well. And I think that is it. So thank you. Sorry if I've overrun a little bit.
No, it's absolutely fine. There's so many incredible projects that's going on. You know, just even picking up some of the comments from in the chat, like from Gary. You know, I was about to say the district heating network. You know, I've seen all the work, but just had no idea that was actually what it was for. There's a question that's coming through. We'll just take one question if that's okay, and then move on to lightning. There's some more, so this is from well, it's from an anonymous, but there's some awesome stuff going on here. How do you ensure that the most vulnerable in the most deprived areas are sufficiently educated and are able to access services to collect the data?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And in fact, one of the we have obviously our priority neighbourhoods, and I would say much of our work is focused in those areas. So, for example, we've part of the digital inclusion work that we've done. We had I think we had £100,000 allocated to roll out more free Wi-Fi, and we focused. £100,000 doesn't go too far. I think we allocated about to do one install in each building. I think we allocated about £5,000. I think in the end, so that's 20 different community buildings. In the end, I think we're probably going to end up doing by the end of June about maybe buildings, out a little bit further. All of those buildings are in our priority areas, and that was, you know, and those are the areas that we focus on. We're also doing a lot of work. Our adult social care guys are doing a lot of work. You might come across ABCD, asset-based community development. So we work with third sector organisations, for example, LS14 Trust in Seacroft. They're doing great stuff there, and we work very closely with all those organisations to promote the work that we're doing and get them involved, find out what their issues are in their communities, their challenges, and look to address those in the best way that we can.
Awesome.